So, Alexa, how is AI going to affect my business? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave this session in the very capable hands of Dr. Zoe Webster, Director AI and Data Economy at Innovate UK.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the event, welcome to this session. As you all know, AI and data is so hot right now. I saw a tweet yesterday suggesting that anyone talking about AI should at least say what they mean by AI. And I think by AI, I mean developing machines that can do things that we'd normally associate with intelligence, things like decision-making, perception, planning, etc., and the related tools and techniques and approaches that go along with that. So AI and data is being talked about everywhere. It has a huge role to play in the other grand challenges that you'll be hearing about today and over the rest of the event. We've got a really interesting panel of people to talk about how they expect AI and data to impact business going forward. So I'd like to invite them all up into the stage, and they'll be introducing themselves shortly. Thank you. It'd be great if you could introduce yourselves, where you're from, and your perspective on the hype around AI and data and how you see it impacting business going forward. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pablo Coca. I work as Director of Business Development in CTIC, a Spanish technology center specialized in technologies for the digital transformation. And one of our core activity is, of course, artificial intelligence. So, regarding the question about the perspectives of the artificial intelligence and the question of there is or not a hype around the artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence exists since years. I mean,
1950.
it is something. It is not something new. Just think how our lives were 10 years, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And for example, today we could not decide what film to be because there is an algorithm in the digital platform suggesting you what is your kind of film for seeing, or the GPS navigator is suggesting you to take the most affordable way for reaching on time your destination. So it exists. It is true that there is a kind of emergent trend, and there is a social concern also in the business side regarding the impact of the artificial intelligence in the next years. Just to take into account a picture, the Gartner's hype cycle on artificial intelligence, and if we watch what is represented there, we see 35 technologies, but 65% of these technologies are concentrated in the two initial phases: innovation trigger and the hype.
Yeah.
So for me, it is an evidence that something is happening, something is there, and we will face in the next years really an explosion of the adoption of this kind of technologies.
That's great. Thank you. Sharif.
Thank you, Zoe. So I'm Sharif Saidali. I am with Element AI. We're a Canadian company based in Montreal. We are an AI products company. We work across multiple verticals, so insurance, finance, retail, manufacturing, and others. I'm actually in our London office, where we focus on AI applications for the public benefit. So we work with nonprofit organizations, international organizations, public sector on looking to help contribute to solving human rights and environmental problems. I think on the sort of your question is, I think to me it's very clear that the future of business, the future of government, of the humanitarian sector, machine learning, AI, machine learning in particular, at the moment has a very big part of it, just present and future. It's there, it's going to keep spreading, it's going to keep adding value. And the point is, I think that for me, that's not the point of contention. The issue is, when is it that things are being hyped up in a way that's unrealistic, or unrealistic for the moment at least, or also just saying that AI is going to solve everything. Whilst we look at, technology is part of a solution to things, whether it's in the business or it's the public sector. The technology contributes to solutions to make things faster, better, more efficient, but that's in combination with whether it's procedures within business, different processes, whether it's policies within government. And I think it's the biggest risk is that we, or at least the sort of, a lot of the public discourse ends up talking about things that are just going to be automatically, magically solved by technology, and it's never like that, whether it's AI or anything else. And so I think if we sort of focus on the added value that AI can, or machine learning can very clearly give now, and will be able to in other sort of settings in the future, then we will be in a better place than if we just talk about things that may are not possible now, or may not never happen.
Thank you. Paul.
Thanks, Zoe. So I'm Paul O'Brien. I'm the Director of Research from BT Labs. For those that aren't familiar with BT, we're a communications provider. We service consumer, business, SME, all the way through to multinationals and governments. We operate in 170 countries, so we're quite a large company. And I guess from our viewpoint, we see great opportunity in AI, but it's not just recently. It's over many, many years have we exploited AI, previous generations of AI, and it's predominantly in the area of productivity and insight. So we've, as with many large companies, if we can become more efficient, more effective, and exploit our information assets better, we can deliver better service at a lower cost. And so we see, so every day, for example, our 30,000 field engineers, the demand for their work is forecast by an AI algorithm that mines weather data going back decades. We use component technologies to do capacity planning, to do on-the-scale scheduling, to diagnose faults in our networks by harvesting, petabytes of data throughout the day. We use AI, we embed it often in our cybersecurity solutions. We've got security operations centers, 18 around the world, who are monitoring literally billions of network events, every minute, and they need AI to augment what they do. So I think we see a lot of value from AI when it's applied with clear purpose, and it isn't just the latest generation of deep learning techniques. It goes back to previous generations, statistical techniques and so on. And we see that continuing and probably accelerating, but we see great opportunity in the productivity and insight side for a business like BT.
Thanks, Paul. Ed.
Hi there. Yes. So I'm Ed Peisnath. I'm the lead for research into machine learning and artificial intelligence for IBM in the UK. I also have the title of visiting professor of industrial applied AI at the University of Liverpool. And obviously IBM has been in the AI game for quite a while now, way back to before it was cool. And where I work now is all about understanding how we can take these concepts, AI, not just the new stuff, as Paul said, but the stuff over our history and our experience, and find out ways in which we can help businesses and the local economy and to augment and accelerate and enrich their ability to deal with data. And it's kind of an overused phrase that data is the next natural resource, but it's an interesting one, and it's a slightly subtle one because it's a natural resource like no other, because simply possessing a lot of it doesn't mean that you have anything inherently valuable. It's all about what you do with it, how you process it, and we think that the work that we're doing and others are doing in AI today is going to really enable a step change in how people deal with that data going forwards.
Thanks, Ed. Gillian.
Thank you, Zoe. I'm Gillian Docherty. I am the Chief Executive of the Data Lab. We are based in Scotland, and we are Scotland's National Innovation Centre for Data and AI, with a mission to help the country maximise its value from data. I think, looking at your question, I think the hype is very dangerous. And if you look at AI, we like to try and make it simple. You have very narrow AI, and that's where we are right now. Complex, yes, but narrow. We are starting to see solutions in the market and being driven into business and parts of the public sector. You have general AI, and we like to think of that as in the labs and research. And then the superhuman AI, which we often get dragged into that type of conversation that we're doomed, the robots are coming, is just in the movies. So we like to think of it like that. I think the other aspect is that actually the use of data, even if it's not by pure definition AI, can be massively valuable for your business. So just saying it's AI, I think, is a misnomer. Ultimately, it's how do you make your business more profitable, build new products or services, improve productivity or optimization. That's where you should start.
That's a really important point, thank you. So I hope you've got a feel for the breadth of expertise and experience on the panel now. So I was going to kind of focus on, I mean, we saw in the video earlier that companies are starting to adopt AI and data technologies more and more, and many of them are looking to do that in the next 12 months. I was wondering if the panel could say a bit more about where they see the biggest opportunities for private sector investment in AI and data in the next 1 or 2 years. So maybe, Pablo, to start with you.
The biggest opportunities?
Yeah, biggest opportunities, yeah.
Regarding the sectors from the perspective of the position and the experience in Spain, let's say that Spain, following the recommendation of the European Commission of developing coordinated action at the European level for engaging and for sharing and coordinating efforts on the European countries in artificial intelligence. In Spain, we are developing a national strategy on artificial intelligence, and a first milestone in this process was a partial strategy on R&D activities. So this strategy on R&D activities was issued in the month of March, and in this document there are two kind of big sectors identified as critical for acquiring artificial intelligence as a driver of change. The first one is related to society, all things related to health services, education, and public administrations. On the other hand, we have the business sector, and in that point, a previous analysis was performed to identify what are the key sectors for the Spanish economy, and what are prepared in terms of digital maturity, because this is an important point. Yeah. It is something of willing, but also something of being able to do it. So we need a sort of digital maturity for acquiring this data, these technologies. It is something simple. No data, no artificial intelligence. So the first step is to have the data, to have access to the data. And in the case of Spain, sectors like manufacturing, related to the industry 4.0, energy, and also tourism, that is a strong power of economy in my country, were the main sectors detected. So for me, it is a serious, a strong process, and from our point of view, these are good examples of potential for the implementation of these technologies.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So, I mean, I guess part of what you're saying from there is actually that kind of digital readiness, that digital transformation needs to happen on a company level before they can really harness AI and data.
several levels, company level, but also it is a question of culture also in the society, in the employees.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, companies at individual level need to have the good level for doing that. But you could be very strong in digital transformation at individual level.
Yeah.
If you have limitations for accessing to, for example, public data, all the things related to the open data and access to the data sets, you will be limited for doing that. So it is a mix that you need to have the right level for that.
So thank you. We'll come back to the government role potentially a bit later. Paul, did you have any more to add in terms of what the individual business, what opportunities there might be for individual businesses as they think about data and AI?
Yes, so I guess I think for business, it isn't so much trying to second guess the market or try and spot some of those early propositions, although I guess that is part and parcel. But it's mainly AI readiness. I think it's putting companies in a position so they could rapidly adopt and exploit AI technologies, whichever way it goes, whatever techniques emerge. And I think that readiness is what will make the difference for companies such as BT. So, data obviously is a key one, and often data is seen as a cost, not an asset, traditionally, and therefore it's turning that around and understanding that your data can be an asset, as long as there's value to be extracted from it. So therefore you need to be able to have decent quality data, make it accessible, allow people to try out different models on that data set. So I think data is the key one. Skills is another key one. There's a paucity of, I think, AI skills around. And the skills aren't just technical skills, it's skills in business development, in marketing, and understanding what impact it has on your portfolio. It's understanding how you'd onboard AI components into what could be hundreds, if not thousands of systems, and how you go about not just onboarding it, but testing it, operating it, making it interoperate with other components in your estate. And I guess the last one is making sure from a company's viewpoint that you have the right ethical policy so that your use of AI fits into your value system. And therefore you need to, I guess, upgrade that to reflect the potential dangers around using and abusing AI and your data assets.
That's really helpful, thank you. And Ed and Gillian, you both work with a whole range of different companies. What challenges do you see them having in relation to harnessing data and AI?
So I think there's a couple of challenges. So one of the ones that is most prevalent, I think, especially at the moment, is the vertical companies that are consumers of AI are consuming the products of horizontal providers, such as IBM, such as a large number of tech companies. But the reason that they are consumers and not producers is because they need to understand more. But if you're in a position where you don't necessarily understand the intricacies of what's going on, it makes it very hard for you to differentiate what is quality produce and what is, for want of a better term, vaporware. I think that is a significant challenge. I think from a producer's challenge, it's all about how do you transition the absolutely fantastic work that's going on at the really low TRL levels, so in the really fundamental research, into something that actually works at the scale and at the challenges of the real world. So, for instance, your data is often much noisier, it's coming much faster, it's maybe missing certain elements, and being able to understand how to take the fantastic breakthroughs that have happened that enable you to do more cool, interesting stuff and get more value out of that data, and how to make that transition is, I think, is a really key challenge for both the providers and also the lower tier level research people.
Thank you. Gillian?
I think probably just to build on what Ed said is that you need to start from the business. You need to start from the business or organizational priorities, and that your AI and data strategy should underpin how you get to your business priorities faster, better, more efficient. too often, and we've seen it with any hype cycle, no one really talks about big data anymore. But 10 years ago, you saw executives saying to the CIO, go and get me some of that big data stuff. That's not the way to do it. I've spoken to organizations saying, we're going to hire 20 data scientists, we're going to throw our data at them, and they're going to tell us something wonderful. And it's like, hang on. You need to start with the questions that you want to answer. Yeah. I think one of the biggest inhibitors is talent. I think getting beyond the hype, not being sold on the vaporware or the promises without really understanding the context for your domain. And I think increasingly and more importantly is the ethical dimension, is making sure that you're asking those questions all the way through. It's not a bolt-on at the end and a tick box exercise. And more importantly, that I think that will become, and it should be, a very valuable thing for those that will be the winners in this space, will be those that do it ethically and I believe morally.
Thank you. And because businesses don't operate in isolation, they're part of big supply chains. And do you see AI and data changing the nature of supply chain relationships with the customers, any different kind of from software more generally? Paul, we were talking about this earlier.
I guess from a telecom viewpoint, we're seeing a massive change. Well, to be honest, telecoms is our history is a history of technical change, yes. So we're going through the latest generation, which is moving to 5G. In our core networks, we're moving towards, I don't think this is a real English word, the softwarification of our infrastructure, which is basically where it's less, functionality is less embedded in hardware and more in the software. Yeah. And this transformation is called network functional virtualization, software-defined networks. In 5G, we're talking about network slicing. This means that we have a very different infrastructure and stack than we would have had traditionally, which is changing the nature of our engagement with suppliers. It means that the pace of change is faster because innovation in software can be easily deployed. You don't have to wait for long hardware cycles in terms of manufacturing. It means that there's understanding points of differentiation for your market in your software stack is vital if you're going to succeed and thrive. And it changes it means there's lower barriers to entry for vendors. So I think we're seeing a lot of change in our infrastructure anyway, and then if you add AI on top of that, that adds to a whole new set of challenges in how we engage with that broader ecosystem of vendor suppliers, collaborators, researchers.
Thank you. And going even more broadly, I mean, thinking of the international dimension, I mean, the UK does do pretty well in AI. I mean, we've got a lot of the strong research groups here, we've got lots of startups, we've got lots of big companies who are taking advantage of this and have been involved in for quite a while. Sharif and Pebble, I was just wondering, can you give us some insights to who's doing particularly well on the global stage, who we should be looking to in certain areas to learn from in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe just two examples, and one of them is, so I'll give maybe an example in Canada that there is where I feel the difference is, I mean, both have very strong academic, very strong in academia and research, very strong in business. I think maybe that's what I feel as someone who visits Canada regularly, but don't live there, is that the difference is seems to be a more of a, you feel like it's more of a national priority in terms of the various things that the country is pushing, and I think it's this sort of obviously the UK had announced the it's kind of big funding for supporting AI and
AI sector deal, etc. Yeah.
But the maybe that's kind of one of the good things that you can see in Canada. You don't see that in the US, for example. You don't see it in other places. I mean, on the other side of the world, China is another place where again they've taken a very specific decision to do that. I think there was is it Finland where they've, for example, had the idea of getting a very large number of the population at least familiar with what AI is through learning programs. And the other example maybe that's there that I think is very positive, and it's not a country, but it's as such, I mean, it's what the EU has done. So they've had the high-level group, expert group on AI that was sitting for a year and a half, and produced this big study report on the how to build trust in AI, so kind of looking at AI ethics. And I think that's a really important step, because I think one of the biggest dangers, the risks for achieving the potential of AI in business and public sector others, is that people lose trust in the technology, and lose trust in technology generally, and in this case, specifically AI. And I think really leading with saying we need to build that trust and finding the ways of doing that is really important, and something that, I think the UK could play a really important role in.
Thank you. Pablo, do you have any views on who we should be looking to learn from?
I think that first of all, we should look at the countries that demonstrate having a clear strategy for facing this change. After that, the strategy could be a different basis. For example, a question of funding. It is important, but not always is the full solution. And in that case, all of us, we have seen the enormous budget allocated by China or the US. But for example, in the case of Europe, we have strong countries at individual level positioning in this field. But if we put all these efforts together, we could have really a leading position as Europe. And the processing in that case is from bottom to the top. I mean, the countries start individually setting their strategies, pushing their initiatives, and now we are trying to put all these efforts in coordination. So this is, in my opinion, this is a key point, a key challenge to do. And the coordinated action plan in the European Union has an important milestone this year, 2019, for having this common strategy. Regarding the countries individually, in Europe, we have by size the 4 largest economies leading this field: UK, Germany, France, and Spain in the 4th position. If we put the indicator in terms of population, only UK is on the top 5 countries, because Germany, France, and Spain are moved by Finland, Sweden, these small countries, but again, with a good level of acceptation of the artificial intelligence, good level of digital maturity, and as my colleague said just before, it is a very important point for doing it possible.
Thank you. And briefly, before we come on to questions from the audience, we've got a few come in. I'm just wondering about what role government has to help with innovation, whether it's around readiness or engendering trust or providing more coordination. Julian, do you have any words on that from your perspective?
I think the government can play a huge role, and we've certainly seen that in Scotland. On multiple levels, it's not just about support and investment, it's about setting a vision and a strategy. They will have responsibility for regulation and legislation to a certain extent as well, which I think is an interesting perspective. When in March we ran a Data Fest, which is a big festival of data innovation, and we were honoured to welcome the First Minister of Scotland to stage, and it was right in the middle of March, right in the middle of all the, should we say, shenanigans that were going on in Westminster, and our First Minister was talking about unconscious bias in training algorithms. And it was just a really interesting perspective when your government needs to understand the impact this can have on the economy, the benefits that it can bring, and where they need to intervene to provide support, to innovate, or to create the talent pipelines, which are probably going to be one of the biggest inhibitors globally to how an economy can maximise the value from data. So I think there's multiple levels from creating the talent pipeline, setting a strategy and vision, support, be it financially or with the right ecosystem, and obviously regulation and legislation as well.
Okay, thank you. Let me just move on to some questions from the audience there. There's a big issue around trust, whether that's through business models, through other means. So you mentioned what Finland have been doing, engaging with non-experts and trying to make sure that people, however they may encounter AI and data, have some trust. Have you got any kind of perspectives or any suggestions for how we can increase trust in AI and data? Is this a good thing to do? Is it something you should be quite wary of, given that how far do we trust machines going forward? Have you got any views on that?
So I think an ethical policy is really key, because I think being very public about what your value system is as a company and how you intend to use data is a key part of that.
Yeah.
I think part of that is understanding, being a smart procurer of AI components from vendors. So understanding when you're essentially buying a black box and therefore it's very opaque as to what's going on, what decisions are being made, versus deciding to explicitly go for another technique which is transparent. So I think a key part of this is from a company's viewpoint, a business viewpoint, developing that relationship with customers so they see and trust you with data. And I think it's a precious thing to have, that trust, but it's easily lost.
Yeah, so a bit openness and being clear and upfront about what you're doing and how you're doing it is really important.
Yes.
Anyone else got any perspectives, or Ed?
So yes, I mean, I think there's a responsibility on the end of people that are producing the algorithms and producing the software to understand that the trust, the explainability, the ethics are as important as performance. It is lazy to hide behind oh, it's a black box, we can't explain it, I'm terribly sorry, you'll have to deal with it. But look at the performance. That's not good enough anymore, and it should not be good enough for anybody going forwards. So there is a responsibility on people who are working, not just in terms of vending solutions, but those working in the research who are developing the next generation of capabilities, to understand how to mesh those two worlds together in order to produce something that is actually sort of an acceptable capability going forwards.
Thank you. Sharif?
Yeah, I think just like the dumbest software in the world can create a lot of havoc if used in the wrong way and it just put in the wrong settings. So I think it's, yes, I mean, we do all need all the things to make sure that the AI systems are built in the right way and have the right parameters. Kind of look at things like bias and explainability and all that. But if we don't look at the system surrounding those, so how they're deployed. Should they be deployed in the first place? Is that a good use case or not? And the checks sort of to make sure that whatever the results are, are what we would like to see, or if there are problems, then we go back and see how to fix those. If we don't have that, then the best AI is not going to work.
That's really helpful. And I think we could spend lots and lots of time talking about the various issues you've raised. I think we need to move on to our next speaker, who's going to provide a case study for us on that. But thank you so much for talking. I don't know if anyone's got any brief words about, in response to one of the questions we've had, any kind of exemplar AI use cases that you've seen that really excite you or really show the possibility? I mean, for me, there's quite a lot going on in health and early cancer diagnosis. Any other kind of cases that you think exemplify the power of AI and data?
Just one case that we are facing in a European project, a Horizon 2020 project. It is related to the assistance to people with serious limitations to express their emotions. People, for example, suffering of cerebral paralysis and this kind of problems. So in that case, each person express their sentiments, express itself, his or herself. Yep. By different means. So today we are depending totally on the expertise of an assistant that knows these people, this patient problem. What happens when this assistant is not there? It is a problem for a stress also for the family. Of course, it is a problem for the patient. So, what are we doing? We are the project is called Incension, and we are developing an AI engine for learning how this patient express its needs. So using that, we are less dependent on the assistant, and we can improve the well-being of this patient. At this point, I am advancing another question. Perhaps someone could say, okay, so it is something that could destroy employment. No, because the person, the assistant, is always needed, because it is something. In my opinion, the most important impact of artificial intelligence for the society is that it is improving our skills and capabilities as humans. So
I think that's
the novelty for me is that we will be in the following years in a situation in which the collaboration between humans and machines will be more familiar, something that we could do.
Thank you so much. I think we need to move on. But as I say, I think also AI is going to tell us a lot about ourselves and how we work with each other, let alone with machines as well. So thank you very much to Pablo, Sharif, to Paul, to Ed and Gillian. Thank you so much for your contributions. I'm going to now invite Job Spoelstra to the stage to talk about a case study from his EUREKA work. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here and for inviting me to speak to you today. I'm Job Spoelstra. I'm the Innovation Program Coordinator for Technolution. And Technolution, we are a company of 200 people full of technology passion in different fields of technology. We're an IT system integrated to the bone, I could say, with offices in the Netherlands, UK, Sweden, and Denmark. And we try to connect this physical world with the digital world, and always in an innovative context. So therefore also I'm very pleased to be here again, and almost always in mission-critical environments. And we do that in 4 main different markets, one being mobility, where almost all traffic management centers in the Netherlands are based on our data platforms, and also in Copenhagen, for example. We do public safety and security. We are involved in energy and asset performance management, which I will be talking to you about today, where we have every 15 minutes we read out more than 1 million smart meters in the Netherlands, and we have thousands of sensors in the field. And we're involved in Industry 4.0 developments as well. And all our innovation efforts are revolving around these technologies that we foresee being important for the society and for ourselves as well. And we do that together with clients, together with partners, and also in innovation context within these programs. So we're quite heavily involved in different EUREKA cluster projects, and also from outside the cluster projects, also in European collaboration, sorry for that. And today we'll be talking about an example how we helped future-proofing the energy sector, and what role an ITEA project played in that we were involved in. So when we look at our clients in the energy sector, the energy grid management operators, they are faced with tremendous challenges around the energy transition, where they have to grow from a traditional how we know it for years, energy grid with centralized generation distribution towards their users, towards this smart grid idea where distribution and generation will change, more decentralized generation, more microgrids will pop up, and a lot of communication, negotiation will have to take place, safety precautions will have to be redeveloped. And really, these operators are at the verge of this today point, where they say we have to go towards this integrated smart grid, which will require big data, AI applications, and the potential of these technologies in order to work and to make high frequency, high speed decisions in the grid. But how will we get there? And from Technolution point of view, when we look at these technologies, we see them a lot of times growing from these isolated systems, so just analog sensors being placed around, and we see this in different domains, towards monitoring and control, where you can combine larger sets of sensors into a data dashboard. You can look into historical data, you get a sense of what is going on in my network, towards guarding, where you can add warning signs, where you can get alarms, for example, if there's a smoke detection in a factory, towards more decision support systems, so these semi-autonomous systems, and also going towards full autonomous systems. And when we talk about this idea of smart grids and the technologies we talk about here today as well, I think a lot of us will find ourselves quite a bit up there. So technology-wise, we have some components that are allowing us to get into such a automated, dynamic, smart grid environment. However, that's the more innovative side of the companies and of the group we have together. But when you translate this towards these clients, they're a bit more down there. So this will be their dream, and that will be their reality, where you see that transformer homes sometimes are still sensed by analog sensors that are being read out once a year. When there's a blackout, they have to pinpoint where people are calling from and then try to see where's the problem occurring. So there's quite a gap in between. And what we did in an ITEA project called End-to-End Grids, which ended last year, we tried to sketch this horizon. So how would a smart grid work in that sense, and also take the first steps in growing towards this horizon. So we built an incredible integrated demonstrator with the international parties. It was a collaboration between Dutch parties, Finnish parties. It was led by VTT. Organizations from Portugal, from Israel, from Turkey. We built this incredible working integrated demo where the idea was we started out at the left bottom side. We started to sense this grid on congestion happening. So when the energy use was approaching the limit of certain energy cables, congestion could occur, and this would bring a lot of safety problems and also blackouts. So we would just sense that data and send it towards the grid operator that could use all this data for predicting if this congestion might occur between now and 30 minutes, for example. And within this time frame, they would ask a set of aggregators, can you relieve this cable in some way? So can you change the energy demand that you expect from systems around this cable to relieve the tension in this cable? So there would be a negotiation mechanism where these aggregators could offer flexible energy by making use of both the markets where these energy offers could come from, but also start adjusting appliances downstream. So these could be delaying a dishwasher of consumers that accept it to delay their dishwasher, changing lights from commercial offices that also have accepted, of course, of doing this, in return for a monetary value from the grid operator, and also sharing this monetary value then with their clients, and therefore also lowering their bill. We made this integrated demo which worked quite neatly, but of course is still very much in an innovation stage. And some partners that are relevant for this story are us as Technolution making the sensors in there, Alliander as the grid management operator from the Netherlands, one of the largest, being involved and looking at, so would this be how this future world would look like for me? And TNO being very busy with what kind of standards can be used on connections between these different actors. So what did we do on the measurement level was still quite basic. We made a sensor that is just on the basic energy measurement, so current, voltage, frequency of energy, measure this information on a high quality and high reliability manner. On a non-intrusive manner, so these sensors can be clipped around the cable instead of having to cut them open and install them in there, and low cost, both in buying them in and getting them into this cable. Then after the project, we added on a wireless communication, which you can imagine is quite difficult in a transformer home with quite some electromagnetic aggression going on there. And also capabilities for measuring these in 3 voltage cables. So these would be one cable with 3 different metal cores in them, which make it quite more difficult to measure them from outside, but we did. And then on top of these reliable sensing capabilities, we started adding algorithms for pattern detection. So for example, how much solar generation is now going on behind this cable, a distortion of these patterns, and also prediction of what could be happening in the next few minutes. And you see that Alliander, as one of the partners within the project, and also the 2 other large grid operators, they knew about this concept, and they are now testing and also using this sensor already. And we're now diversifying this towards also use in electrical motors. So we're using these in innovation projects within factories of Heineken, Tata Steel, and assets of Engie. So what you see that within this project, we made both the sketch of what the future might look like and how this negotiation could work and how you could relieve these cables in the new developments in the energy sector by just also taking the first steps in reliable measuring. And now we can start adding on together with partners, growing towards this ultimate goal where we can make dashboards of this data. We can start mapping it on a geographical map. We've made, together with TNO as well, that based on these standards, we made a microgrid in a home. So this is based on load balancing, where an electrical car, a battery, a solar production, and home appliances can negotiate with each other on how to best change or balance the energy. And eventually growing towards the port of Amsterdam, where we do this on a more industrial scale. And eventually, of course, together with partners, growing towards that ultimate goal of automated dynamic grids. As an example of how such an ITEA project can be a core part in such a development, and how big data applications can grow from reliable measuring and sensing towards being more valuable to the customer. Thank you very much for your time.